Hello, everyone. It's been a hell of a morning. Um, yeah. So, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi. My name is Megan, and I do this live streaming thing every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is a live recording of a podcast that goes live every Monday, and I'm glad you're here. And if you're watching live and you have any questions about the topic, you can leave them in the chat. And if you happen to be watching this later, you can still leave questions and comments in the comments box below, and I will respond and answer questions and do all of that stuff. Okay? So I want to hop into the topic today rather quickly. Today's topic was actually recommended to me. Someone asked me to cover this topic: environmentalism, green living, and the horrendous fires that are happening in Australia. So thank you, Tarot Romance, for requesting this topic through Instagram. If you didn't know, you can follow me on social media, send me messages and ask me questions, request for topics to be covered. I do take everything into account and I try to answer all questions as quickly and as accurately as I can. So if you have a topic that you want to see covered, send me a message, DM on Instagram, message on Facebook. You can even email me if you want to reach out to me that way. So today we are going to be covering environmentalism and green living. Now you might be asking me, but what does this have to do with paganism and being a witch? So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with being a witch. In my opinion, though, and now keep this in mind, I do not speak for all pagans. I do not speak for all paths. I cannot speak for all traditions. But within my tradition of Irish paganism, Irish spirituality, Celtic spirituality, I am very connected to the world around me and very connected to the spirit and the energy of earth and nature and the energy of the planet, okay? In my opinion, as a pagan, for me, it is very important for me to take care of the planet and do my part. Now, I know not all pagans are like this, and that's totally fine. This just happens to be part of my specific belief system. But I do know that there are so many other pagans out there who do care for the environment and who environmentalism and green living is a part of their belief system and their practice. So I thank you again, Tarot Romance, for requesting this topic. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm excited to talk about it. But first, we need to talk about Australia. So, in the description and in the show notes, there are several links to all of my sources, and there will be links. They're not there yet, but I will, or they're not there yet for YouTube watchers. But I will put all of the links in the description for different charities and organizations that are doing what they can to help with disaster relief and um, fire relief and animals and people and stuff in Australia. So all of those links will be in the description. YouTube watchers and podcast listeners, they will all be in the show notes as well. So for what's going on in Australia, if you didn't know, Australia is on fire. Like really, really bad fire. Okay. Let me open that up all the way. So some sources, I can't find an exact date for when all of these bushfires started in Australia, but I do know that it's been going on for several months. And there are two sides to this coin, two sides to the people that are arguing about the fires in Australia. On the one side, you have people that are saying that climate change has nothing to do with the bushfires in Australia and that it's all man-made and a the arsonist started the fire, because there were people that were arrested for starting these fires, whether intentionally or not. I don't know if I have that link, but I will find the link for that, and I will put it in the description and in the show notes. It said I think 24 people had been arrested. But you've got the people who are saying that climate change has nothing to do with it, and then you have the people that are saying, yes, climate change has everything to do with it, and these fires are caused by climate change. So, I want to give my opinion on this. I am not a climate change denier. I do believe that our climate is changing and that most of it is caused by the human species. But what does this have to do with the fires in Australia? So, some of the sources that I read said Australia's climate is the most susceptible, the most reactive, I guess. No, that's not the right word. They're the most Their climate is the most susceptible to change due to climate change. And we already know that Australia's summers are typically very dry and very hot, but with climate change, that is becoming worse. It is getting hotter and the climate is getting drier. And that creates the perfect environment for these fires to just explode. Okay? And, that's in a sense, the fires were man-made. Okay? They weren't started by lightning. Nothing spontaneously combusted. They were started by man. They were started by the human species, whether intentionally or not. This could be somebody actually lit a field on fire. It could be that someone flicked a lit cigarette and started a fire. We're not entirely sure at this point because Australia is still burning. But climate change does play a part in why these fires are so large and can become so out of control. And in November, I found a source that said that a catastrophic fire danger was issued in November. And it's the first time in the decade that that particular system had been in place that a catastrophic fire warning or fire danger had been issued. So there's a lot of politics surrounding climate change in Australia right now. I am not from Australia. I don't know anything about the politics in Australia. I have read that the people in power in Australia are climate change deniers. But again, don't quote me on that. I don't have anything really to back that up because I'm not from Australia. I don't live there. I don't get their news information on a regular basis. So that is only hearsay. Okay. But I have a quote here from one of my sources in the description and in the show notes that says about 10 million acres have burned in New South Wales, destroying nearly 1,000 homes. Around 90 fires are currently raging in the state, with about 3 dozen more to the south in Victoria. In total, roughly 12 million acres have been burned by the fires. By comparison, about 1.9 million acres burned in the 2018 fires in California. Those fires, which were the state's most destructive, killed about 100 people. And then, according to the United Nations Association of Australia, Australia is one of the few places severely affected by climate change due to the nature of their long, hot, and dry summers. So, as far as the effect that these fires are having on humanity, I know at least 20 people have died due to these fires, and there is an estimated 500 million plus animals and wildlife that have been affected. Obviously, that's an estimation, but according to sources, that is an estimate on the lower end of things, and that they estimate that by the time the fires are over and when they can get the fires put out, that number is going to significantly climb because of the fires and the dangers. Now, this isn't to mention the fact that the smoke and the ash from these fires is clouding the skies in Australia and making the air quality horrific. And smoke has been traveling away from Australia to other places. So these fires are huge. They're very large and they are affecting a large number of people. And in my opinion, this can be prevented. Now, obviously, it can be prevented by people not starting fires and actually following the laws and not flicking their cigarettes, out the window as they're driving down the highway. But we can prevent this culmination of the perfect environment for these fires to flourish. And that happens through science and education and doing what we can to protect the environment and reduce the greenhouse gas effect and make the environment better so that we can stave off climate change so that it doesn't get worse. Okay, so how can you help the people in Australia? You can, again, if you can, donate to one of the organizations that are going to be listed in the description and in the show notes. Spread the word. Let people know that this is happening. I'm not going to lie, I didn't know that Australia was on fire until a couple of weeks ago. And Australia has been on fire for months. Now, I'm in the United States, and it's a completely separate topic, but for the United States being as like worldly as they are, we don't know anything about the world around us because we're not told. We have to go searching for that information on our own. And I find a lot of this information through social media like Twitter and Facebook and places where these we can come together as a planet and share information. So, yeah, spread the word, do your research on climate change, on the environmental impact of the things that you're doing, and if you can, donate monetarily to help Australia out. If you can't, just spread the word. Put these links out there for people that can help or that do want to help in one way or another. So, me calm down here for a second. So, as a witch, as a pagan, or no, as a witch, how can you help? So, I know not everybody watching this is going to practice witchcraft. I know a lot of the people that do watch this do practice witchcraft, or they're just pagans in general. But as a witch, if you want to help, what are some specific things that you can do? I have a couple of ideas written down here in my notes. The first one is to practice some form of weather magic. Now, that's up to you if that's something that you want to do. I personally don't like to mess with the weather. And I know if you're part of any social media groups or pagan Twitter or anything like that, you'll know that there are a bunch of other witches out there who are doing what they can to try to affect the weather to make the environment better for those fighting the fires on the ground. However, you got to be careful with weather magic because I read that Australia is also prone to flooding. So if you're trying to bring rain and you're doing it and then 50 other people over here are doing it too, it could have a catastrophic effect. But if you are confident in your weather magic abilities, by all means, pray for rain. Something else that you can do is protection magic. Magic and spells to help protect the wildlife, to help protect the people, and to help protect Australia as a whole. Okay? That is one of the easier things that you can do. If you have any sort of rituals or spells or particular beliefs about how to cast protection magic, I do recommend doing that to the best of your abilities and encompass the entirety of Australia, all of the people, the wildlife, the climate, the land, the spirits, everything in Australia. If you can do the protection magic, I highly recommend it. Something else that you can do is if your particular tradition has anything to do with any deities or gods and goddesses, maybe ask them for their guidance and their help too. Um, you know, ask for their help protecting those involved, and maybe to help the people on the ground fighting the fires, give them the strength and the courage to face these fires head on and do all they can to help put the fires out, because that is a dangerous job. And I have much respect for those people that are down there trying to put out those fires, because I couldn't do it. I'm not going to lie to you. So if you work with deities, ask for their help, ask for their assistance, ask them to lend you the power and the guidance to do what you can to help the people involved. My last idea that I have written down here is perform spells for truth. Now, move here. In performing spells for truth, what I mean by that is to encourage those in power and those involved in any of the decision making for the country to see the science and see the truth and the fact of what's going on with climate change and how climate change is affecting the country and the world. You know, it's not necessarily a spell for them to tell the truth. I mean, maybe they do need to tell the truth. Maybe they're lying to themselves, but for them to see the truth and to see how their actions are affecting the people that they govern. Now, I don't have any particular spells off the top of my head. I don't have any links for spells. I do always recommend writing your own spells, and those are just some basic ideas to really get you started in helping Australia to the best of your abilities. So, on a smaller scale, there are things that you can do that might have a small impact when it's only you doing it, but it is important in the grand scheme of things. So, I want to talk about green living. Green living is the idea of living your life as environmentally friendly as you possibly can. And I want to preface this with saying that not everyone is going to be able to do all of the things that I say here. Some of it's not going to be possible for everyone, and that's okay. I never want anyone to feel bad for not being able to do any of the things that I say here. Okay, that's not my intention. And the best example of this is the issue with using straws in public. Okay, there are some conditions, some physical conditions that do not allow people to drink out of a glass or out of a cup, and they depend on the use of a straw. Now, maybe they have a reusable straw and they just forgot it. So that there are some people out there who physically cannot do these things, and that's okay. But the main idea behind green living is being conscious of the choices that you make and how they can affect the world around you, and that means like locally as well as globally. And for me, sometimes it can be very daunting. It can be very challenging to think like, you know, I got this cup at Walmart several years ago, but you know, where did it come from? And what process did it have to go through to get to me? Okay. So, green living means being conscious of your choices, being conscious of your emissions, your carbon footprint. It means buying local food when you can, or buying anything local when you can, because that does reduce the environmental impact on, with freight and how did those food products get to you, you know? And green living also means that you need to reduce your consumption and your waste, and you need to reuse things that no longer serve their original purpose. You need to recycle the things that you no longer use. Um, and I have a quote here from an article, and this is Starhawk speaking. The article is called Climate Change, a Moral Imperative to Act. She says, climate change calls us to become humble, a virtue most religions preach, and a word which has the same roots as hummus. Hummus? Humus? I don't know. I just completely screwed that up. Um, we must literally return to earth, let go of our hubris and pride, and begin to honor and respect those things that sustain our lives. When we do, when we work within nature and take natural systems as our teacher and model, we also find strong allies in some of the most humble creatures. To heal toxic soil, to restore fertility, to break down pathogens, bacteria and fungi are powerful helpers. The sun, the wind, falling water, and moving tides can generate energy. Nature gives us all that we need, and more, to provide lives of abundance, balance, and beauty for all. But she does not give us enough to waste or to satisfy endless greed or addictive need. So, my screw up aside with that word there, I agree, and I feel like faith aside, religion aside, we can't continue on this path that we're going down as a species. We are using all of our resources, and these resources don't last forever, you know? Something's got to give eventually, and what's going to happen is the earth is going to fight back. The earth has a natural system for sustaining homeostasis. So homeostasis is typically a word used when speaking about sickness in your body. So when your body is in homeostasis, you're healthy, you don't have a fever, you know, your temperature's just right, everything in your body is just right, and it's balanced. So the earth and the ecosystem of our planet has a system for remaining in homeostasis. And eventually, something's going to have to give, and that system is going to kick in. And the body of the planet is going to do what it needs to do to get rid of what is causing the planet to go out of homeostasis. Do you know what that is? Because I do. It's people. The human race has taken advantage of our planet, has used the resources as much as possible, and the human race has no regard for the planet being here for our children's children. Okay? And a lot of this, in my opinion, boils down to corporate greed and the need to just have more and bigger, and just everything has to be bigger and better, right? We need to move away from that mindset. And I know I've talked about this before, is something I'm working on in my depth year. Move out of that mindset of consumerism and capitalism, and out of the idea and the thought that you just need to have everything, okay? And we need to move towards being more balanced, to only having what we need. And, you know, there are circumstances where you can get something that you want. You know, we're social creatures, and we have hobbies, and we have things like that. But what often happens is we get in this frame of mind where we have to be on trend with everything. And we are so scatterbrained as a species that we go and we get this thing because it seems really awesome and we want to try it out. And then a month or two later, you give up on it because either you don't like it like you thought you would, or you got bored of it, or you just bought it because it was on trend. That's a problem. And I really encourage all of you to think about the things that you buy before you buy them. And think about where they come from, what they're made of, who made it. You know, where on this planet was that thing produced and what did it go through to get to you? So I want to talk about too some of the things that science says about climate change and environmentalism. Okay, so most of these quotes are from NASA. I do have some here from the IPCC, which is the International Panel of Climate. Oh, what is it? International. It's a summary for policymakers. I know that about climate. And that's also going to be linked in the description and in the show notes. But the quotes that I have here, so some of them are from NASA. They say scientists attribute the global warming trend observed since the mid 20th century to the human expansion of the greenhouse effect. Warming that results when the atmosphere traps heat radiating from Earth towards space. On Earth, human activities are changing the natural greenhouse. Over the last century, the burning of fossil fuels like coal and oil has increased the concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide. This happens because the coal or oil burning process combines carbon with oxygen in the air to make carbon dioxide. To a lesser extent, the clearing of land for agriculture, industry, and other human activities has increased concentrations of greenhouse gases. Now, according to the IPCC, and this is on page 8, which will be linked in the description and in the show notes, carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel combustion and industrial processes contributed about 78% of the total GHG greenhouse gas emission increase from 1970 to 2010, with a similar percentage contribution for the period 2000 to 2010. That's a lot. Fossil fuel burning and industrial processes contributed 78% of the total greenhouse gases. That's a lot. And then in its fifth assessment report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a group of 1,300 independent scientific experts from countries all over the world under the auspices of the United Nations, concluded there's a more than 95% probability that human activities over the past 50 years have warmed our planet. 95% possibility that we are the cause of what's going on. Okay? That's a problem. That's a problem. And then Australian scientists estimate, using trash collected on U.S. coastlines during cleanups over 5 years, that there are nearly 7.5 million plastic straws lying around America's shorelines. They figure that means 437 million to 8.3 billion plastic straws are on the entire world's coastlines. So, what can we do about it? Okay.